I woke up in the hayloft like I had every morning for 3 years, straw stuck to my hair and the smell of horses filling my lungs. The sun was barely creeping through the barn slats when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. Strange. Mr. Henderson never had visitors this early. I pulled on my boots and climbed down the ladder, my muscles aching from yesterday's fence repair. Through the barn door, I saw a black sedan parked next to Henderson's old pickup truck. A woman in a crisp suit stood talking to my boss, holding what looked like official papers. My stomach dropped. Had I done something wrong? Was this about the time I accidentally let the cattle into the neighbor's cornfield? Henderson spotted me and waved me over. His weathered face looked different somehow. Softer, maybe even sad. The woman extended her hand as I approached. "You must be Jake Morrison," she said. "I'm Sarah Collins, attorney for the Henderson estate." Estate? My heart started pounding. "Is everything okay, Mr. Henderson?" He cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. "Jake, there's something I should have told you a long time ago. Something about your family." The morning air suddenly felt thick. I'd been an orphan since I was 16, bouncing between foster homes until I aged out and found this job. Family wasn't something I talked about. "Your grandfather," Henderson continued, "he was my brother." The world tilted. I gripped the fence post beside me, feeling like the ground might give way. "My grandfather?" Ms. Collins stepped forward, unfolding the papers. "Mr. Morrison, I'm here to inform you that you've inherited this ranch. All 2,000 acres of it." I stared at her, then at Henderson, then at the land stretching endlessly around us. This had to be a mistake. I couldn't breathe. The papers in Ms. Collins's hands might as well have been written in a foreign language. Henderson, my uncle apparently, was studying his boots like they held the secrets of the universe. "This is impossible," I whispered. "I don't have family. I've been alone since your parents died in that car accident." Henderson finished quietly. "I know, son. I was there at the funeral." The memory hit me like a physical blow. I was 16, standing in the rain beside 2 coffins, completely alone. Or so I thought. "You were there?" "In the back. I wanted to take you in, but..." He ran his hand through his gray hair. "Your grandfather made me promise never to tell you about this place. Said you needed to find your own way first." Ms. Collins cleared her throat. "Your grandfather, Thomas Morrison, left very specific instructions. You were to inherit only after you'd proven yourself capable of hard work and dedication. Mr. Henderson was asked to evaluate your character." I looked around at the ranch with new eyes. The barn where I'd slept, the fields I'd worked, the cattle I'd tended. It was all mine. "How long have you known?" "Since the day you showed up looking for work," Henderson admitted. "Skinny kid with calloused hands and nowhere to go. You reminded me so much of Tommy at that age." My legs felt weak. I sat down hard on a hay bale, staring at the deed Ms. Collins was holding. "Why didn't he want me to know?" "Because he wanted you to love this land for what it was, not what it could give you," Henderson said. "And you do, don't you? Love it?" I thought about every sunrise I'd watched from the loft, every fence I'd mended, every calf I'd helped birth. "Yeah," I whispered. "I do." Ms. Collins left after explaining the legal details, promising to return with more paperwork. Henderson offered to show me around the property, my property, and point out things I'd never noticed as just a hired hand. We walked toward the main house, a 2-story farmhouse I'd only seen from the outside. Henderson pulled out a set of keys. "These are yours now." The front door creaked as it opened, revealing a living room frozen in time. Dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight, streaming through lace curtains. Family photos lined the mantelpiece, faces I didn't recognize but somehow felt familiar. "That's your grandmother, Mary," Henderson said, pointing to a woman with kind eyes and my same stubborn chin. "And there's Tommy when he was about your age." I stared at the photograph of my grandfather. He was standing beside the same red tractor I'd been working on yesterday, wearing the same type of worn denim shirt I had on now. The resemblance was unsettling. "He bought this place in 1952, Henderson continued, leading me through the house. "Built it up from nothing. Said he wanted to create something lasting, something that would matter." We climbed the stairs to the second floor. Henderson opened a door at the end of the hall. "This was your father's room." The bedroom was simple but preserved. A twin bed with a blue quilt, shelves lined with books about farming and veterinary science, and a desk by the window overlooking the pastures. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of a young couple holding a baby. My parents. And me. I picked up the frame with shaking hands. I'd never seen this picture before. My mother was laughing, my father's arm around her shoulders, both of them looking at baby me like I was their whole world. They visited every summer until... Henderson's voice trailed off. Until they died. And I forgot this place ever existed. I spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the house, each room revealing more pieces of a family history I'd never known existed. In the kitchen, I found my grandmother's recipe box, filled with handwritten cards for apple pie and Sunday roast. The basement held my grandfather's workshop, tools still hanging in neat rows on pegboard walls. But it was the study that stopped me cold. The walls were covered with photographs spanning decades, the ranch through the seasons, cattle drives, harvest celebrations, and family gatherings. In the center of it all hung a large map of the property, marked with my grandfather's careful handwriting noting water sources, grazing rotations, and future plans. Henderson found me there as the sun was setting. He spent hours in here, planning, always thinking about the next generation. Why didn't he reach out when my parents died? The question had been burning in my chest all day. I was alone, sleeping in shelters, working odd jobs just to eat. Henderson sank into the leather chair behind the desk. Pride, mostly, and fear. Tommy blamed himself for the accident. Your father had been driving back from visiting us when it happened. Tommy thought if he hadn't insisted they come for Christmas. The pieces were starting to fit together. So he decided I was better off without him? He was wrong, Henderson said simply. But he was also grieving. Lost his only son and daughter-in-law in one night. By the time he realized his mistake, you disappeared into the foster system. We looked for you for years. I sat down across from him, feeling the weight of all those lost years. And when I showed up here, it felt like a miracle. Tommy was already sick by then, but he made me promise to test you first. See if you had the Morrison work ethic, the love for the land. Did I pass? Henderson smiled. Son, you passed the first day you chose to sleep in the barn rather than quit. That night I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the house. It felt too big, too full of ghosts I wasn't ready to meet. Instead, I climbed back up to the hayloft, but sleep wouldn't come. Every sound seemed amplified. The wind through the rafters, the settling of old wood, the distant lowing of cattle. Around midnight, I heard something that made me sit up straight. Footsteps on the gravel outside. I peered through the loft window and saw a figure walking slowly toward the main house. My heart hammered until I realized it was Henderson, carrying a flashlight and what looked like a shoebox. I climbed down and followed him, finding the front door unlocked. He was in the study, sitting at my grandfather's desk with the box open in front of him. Couldn't sleep either? I asked from the doorway. He looked up, unsurprised to see me. Figured you might want to see these tonight. He gestured to the contents of the box, dozens of letters tied with string. I sat down and picked up the top bundle. The return address made my breath catch. Jake Morrison, followed by various foster home addresses. You wrote to him? Every Christmas and your birthday, Henderson said quietly. For 5 years, until the letters started coming back marked, Return to Sender. You'd aged out, moved on. My hands trembled as I untied the string and opened the first letter. It was written in my teenage handwriting, telling my grandfather about a job I'd gotten at a hardware store, how I was saving money, how I missed having family at Christmas. "He kept them all," Henderson said. "Read them over and over. That's how he knew you were working hard, staying out of trouble. That's how he knew you'd grown into the kind of man who deserved this place." I looked up at him through blurry eyes. He never forgot about me. Never, not for a single day. I woke up in my grandfather's chair, the letters scattered across the desk where I'd fallen asleep reading them. Sunlight was streaming through the study windows, and I could hear Henderson starting the morning chores outside. For the first time in my life, I didn't jump up to help. I was the owner now, not the hired hand. The thought felt surreal. I made coffee in my grandmother's kitchen, using her old percolator, and stepped onto the front porch to watch the sunrise. The view was the same one I'd seen from the barn loft, but everything felt different now. This wasn't just where I worked, it was home. Henderson appeared around the corner of the barn, leading the horses out to pasture. When he saw me on the porch, he raised his hand in greeting. I walked down to meet him. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Do you stay on? Do I even know how to run this place?" He chuckled. "You've been running it with me for 3 years, Jake. You know every inch of this land, every animal, every seasonal rhythm. Tommy made sure of that. But the business side, the finances, that's what I'm here for, if you'll have me. I've been managing the books since Tommy got sick. Place is profitable, debt-free, and well-maintained." He paused. "Though I understand if you want to bring in your own people." I looked at this man who'd been more of a father to me than I'd realized. "Your family, Henderson. You stay as long as you want." His weathered face broke into a smile. "In that case, we better get to work. Those cattle won't feed themselves, and there's a storm coming in tonight. We need to check the fence lines in the north pasture." I grinned back. "Yes, sir. But from now on, you can call me boss." We both laughed at that, and for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The storm Henderson predicted hit with a vengeance that evening. I was in the barn checking on the horses when the first lightning bolt split the sky, followed immediately by thunder that shook the building to its foundation. Rain hammered the roof as I secured the last stall door. The horses were restless, sensing the electricity in the air. I was about to head to the house when I heard a different sound, a rhythmic banging coming from somewhere above. I climbed to the loft and found a loose board in the far wall, flapping in the wind that was somehow getting through. When I went to secure it, the board came away entirely, revealing a hidden space behind the wall. Inside was a metal box wrapped in oilcloth. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were more letters, but these were different. Official documents, bank statements, and a thick envelope marked, "For Jake, when he's ready." I tore open the envelope. Inside was a letter in my grandfather's careful handwriting, dated just 6 months ago. "My dear grandson," it began. "If you're reading this, then Henderson has done what I asked, and you've proven yourself worthy of this legacy. But there's more you need to know." The letter went on to explain that the ranch was just part of what I'd inherited. My grandfather had been quietly buying up surrounding properties for decades, protecting them from development. I now owned nearly 10,000 acres of prime farmland. "But with this gift comes responsibility," the letter continued. "This land feeds families. It provides jobs. It's a sanctuary for wildlife and a piece of America's agricultural heritage. You're not just inheriting property, Jake. You're inheriting a trust." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the letter in my hands. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the barn, surrounded by the smell of hay and horses, I felt a profound sense of purpose settling over me. I wasn't just a ranch owner, I was a guardian of something much bigger than myself. The next morning dawned clear and bright, as if the storm had washed the world clean. I found Henderson in the kitchen, making breakfast and acting like nothing unusual had happened. "Found something interesting last night," I said, placing the metal box on the table. His eyes widened when he saw it. I wondered when you'd find that. Tommy said you would when you were ready. 10,000 acres, Henderson. 10,000. And I've been sleeping in a barn. He poured me coffee, his movements deliberate and calm. Your grandfather didn't want you overwhelmed. He figured you'd grow into it gradually. I spread the property maps across the table. The scope was staggering. The ranch I knew was just the centerpiece of a vast agricultural empire. How many people work all this land? Directly or indirectly. About 200 families depend on these properties for their livelihood. Henderson sat down across from me. Your grandfather wasn't just a rancher, Jake. He was a steward. Every decision he made was about sustainability, community, and legacy. The responsibility felt crushing. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not ready for this? You think Tommy was ready when he started? He was younger than you are now, with nothing but determination and a dream. Henderson leaned forward. You've got something he didn't have when he began. You've got the foundation he built, and you've got me to help guide you. I studied the maps, tracing the boundaries with my finger. Each parcel represented families, livelihoods, a way of life that was becoming increasingly rare in modern America. There's something else, Henderson said quietly. Developers have been sniffing around. Big money, looking to turn this into suburbs and shopping centers. Tommy fought them off for years, but they'll be back now that ownership has changed. I looked up at him. They think I'll sell? They think you're just a kid who doesn't understand what he's got. I folded the maps carefully. Then they're about to learn how wrong they are. The developers came calling 3 days later. 2 men in expensive suits, driving a Mercedes that looked wildly out of place on our dirt road. I watched them from the barn loft as they knocked on the main house door. Henderson answered, and I could see him gesturing toward the barn. They walked over together, the city men picking their way carefully around mud puddles in their polished shoes. Mr. Morrison. The older one extended his hand. I'm Richard Blackwood from Blackwood Development. This is my associate, Tom Chen. We'd like to discuss a business opportunity. I climbed down from the loft, deliberately taking my time, hay still clinging to my shirt. What kind of opportunity? We understand you've recently inherited this property. That's a big responsibility for someone your age. Blackwood's smile was all teeth and no warmth. We're prepared to offer you $12 million for the entire holdings. Cash deal, quick closing, $12 million. The number hung in the air like smoke. I could see Henderson watching me carefully, saying nothing. That's a generous offer, I said slowly. But I'm not interested in selling. Chen stepped forward. Mr. Morrison, with respect, you're a farmhand. This is a complex agricultural operation worth far more than you probably realize. Our offer represents fair market value, and it would set you up for life. I am set up for life, I replied. Right here. Blackwood's smile faltered. Perhaps you need time to think about it. We'll be in town for a few days. Don't need time. The answer's no. They exchanged glances. Mr. Morrison, development is coming to this area whether you participate or not. It would be better for everyone if you worked with us rather than against us. The threat was subtle but clear. I stepped closer, feeling my grandfather's determination flowing through my veins. Gentlemen, I think you should leave. Now. They left, but I knew they'd be back. Men like that didn't take no for an answer easily. Over the next few weeks, the pressure intensified. The developers tried everything. Higher offers, veiled threats, attempts to turn the community against me by suggesting I was standing in the way of progress and jobs. But something unexpected happened. The families who worked the land, the local businesses that depended on agricultural trade, the neighbors who'd known my grandfather, they rallied around me. People I'd never met stopped by to share stories about Tommy Morrison and what this land meant to them. Mrs. Garcia, whose family had worked our cattle operation for 2 generations, brought me her grandmother's tamales and told me how my grandfather had paid for her son's college education. Old Pete from the feed store explained how Tommy had kept his business afloat during the recession by paying his bills early and sending extra customers his way. "Your grandfather wasn't just a landowner," Pete said, sitting on my front porch as we watched the sunset. "He was the backbone of this whole community. Without this ranch, half the businesses in town would fold." I was beginning to understand the true scope of what I'd inherited. It wasn't just land. It was an entire ecosystem of interdependent lives and livelihoods. The breaking point came when I found survey stakes driven into our north pasture. Blackwood's people were testing boundaries, seeing how far they could push before I pushed back. I called the sheriff, but more importantly, I called a community meeting. If they wanted a fight, they'd get one. But it wouldn't be just me against them. It would be everyone whose lives were connected to this land. That evening, the high school gymnasium filled with farmers, ranchers, business owners, and families. When I stood up to speak, I saw my grandfather's legacy reflected in every face in that room. "This isn't just about one ranch," I began. "This is about who we are and what we're willing to fight for." The legal battle lasted 6 months, but we won. The community's united front, combined with environmental protection laws and agricultural preservation statutes, created an impenetrable defense against development. Blackwood development moved on to easier targets, and the land remained safe. Standing in the same spot where I'd first learned about my inheritance, I watched the sunrise paint the pastures gold. Henderson joined me, moving a little slower these days, but still sharp as ever. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said quietly. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from sleeping in the barn as a hired hand to standing as the guardian of 10,000 acres and 200 families' livelihoods. I hope so. Some days I still can't believe this is real. It's real because you made it real. You could have taken that money and walked away. Nobody would have blamed you. But then it wouldn't have been home anymore. Henderson smiled. "Now you sound like a Morrison." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the cattle move across the distant hills. In a few hours, the day's work would begin. Fences to mend, crops to tend, decisions to make that would affect not just this ranch, but the entire community that depended on it. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the sunrise, then posted it to the ranch's new social media account with a simple caption: "Another day in paradise. This is what we're fighting to preserve." The responses came quickly, hearts and comments from people all over the world who understood that places like this were worth protecting. As we walked back toward the barn, Henderson chuckled. "You know, Tommy always said this land had a way of finding the right people to take care of it." I looked back at the house where my family had lived, the fields they'd worked, the legacy they'd built. I think it found me just in time.